Okay, everyone, my name is Chris, and I'm going to be the instructor for these lessons, for the 4 lessons that we do. And I'd just like to welcome everybody. So this is lesson 1, covering part 1 of the test, and it's mostly focused on speaking. And I'd just like to make sure that everybody can see a smiling test taker taking the test on the computer. Can you see that picture? And can you see now that I'm moving to the CAEL CE online course overview? So these are numbers 1 to 7. Okay, great. Thank you guys for letting me know. Somebody is just asking, if I join the upcoming sessions, should I register or enroll? And yes, please do it the same way that you did for this lesson. Please sign up for the lessons beforehand. Thank you. Okay, so the first lesson is going to start with an overview of the test, the CAEL CE test, to help you to understand the structure of the test. And then we will be focusing on part 1 of the test, which is all about speaking. We will go through each of the 3 tasks in part 1. And for each of those tasks, I will show you a sample question. Then I'll play you a sample response, which we can talk about. And then you will get your own chance to practice with a new question. So this is your chance to kind of experience the time of the test and how it feels to answer the question. Then we can wrap up today's lesson with some test tips, as well as some study tips to help you do well on the speaking component of the test. And hopefully everybody can see the CAEL CE overview slide, right, with a Canadian flag. So let me know if you can't see that, but I think we're okay. So this is the CAEL CE overview. CAEL CE is a Canadian test of academic English, so this is one of the great plus points about this test because it is Canadian. It's developed in Canada by Canadians. And so it does offer Canadian English and Canadian accents with a focus on integrated skills and topics. So that means that the questions you see will relate to each other in the same part of the test. It also gives you a realistic assessment of language used in Canadian universities and colleges, which is really useful for understanding how you can do at college here. And the test is 100% computer delivered, so you can do the test in one sitting. You don't need to book multiple appointments. Okay, so I'd just like to ask everyone a question. This is a poll, and you'll see a question saying, have you taken any of our other CAEL CE online webinars? Yes, no, or not sure. And I'd just like you to answer that question if you don't mind, just so I can see who has done one of these before and who is brand new. Thank you. So I'm getting some answers now. Feel free to answer yes, no, or not sure. Okay, so let's stop here and just share the results with you. So 30% of people have done one of our online webinars before, 65% no, but 4% weren't sure. Okay, so let's try a different one. Are you trying to decide if the CAEL CE test is right for you? So that means based on today, is this going to give you more information and maybe help you to decide if you want to take the CAEL CE test or not? Okay, so I'll just put that one. That's just yes or no. Thank you for letting me know that, Harmel. So you've seen a few of the YouTube videos. That's great. Okay, so I see 76% of people have voted. 79, okay, well, I guess we can stop here. Oh, 83, great. Okay, good. So if everyone can vote, that's fantastic. All right, so let's see the results. 68% said yes, and 32% said no. So it's a lot more clear that time. Thanks for voting. Just hide that. And I want to ask one more question before we get ready started here. And this is, have you registered for the CAEL CE test already? So have you already signed up for the CAEL CE test? And just yes or no, please. So it's kind of interesting. Got about 79% of people have voted. Would anyone else like to vote? Thank you. All right, I guess we can stop here, and I'll just share the results with you too. So you can see that 29% said yes and 71% said no. Thanks for letting me know, everyone. It's just very interesting to know that. Maybe I can ask you one more of these at the end if we have time. So I'd like to show you an overview of the test format. The CAEL CE test is broken into 5 parts. Part 1 is for speaking tasks only, while the other 4 tasks integrate 2 or 3 different skills. Also, there is a different topic for each of these 4 integrated parts. So the tasks in each of the last 4 parts relate to the same topic. So I'll show you what that means in a moment, but that's the general timing and number of questions that you will see in each part of the test. The part that we're focusing on today is just part 1, speaking, and that's going to cover 3 different speaking types and only speaking. There is no writing or reading question types in part 1. And so somebody is also saying, I'm trying to get information about speaking tips. So I really hope that today's lesson can help you with that. That's the point of this one. We're mostly focused on speaking. So this is how the integrated skills break down for each part. This is a very simplified chart, but it gives you an idea of what to expect. In part 1, it's independent speaking. So like I said, part 1 is just about speaking. But then part 2, it has speaking questions that are based on reading questions. So you can see a reading passage, answer some questions about the reading, and then later you will do a speaking question that is related to the reading that you just did. And they are the same subject. So one of the nice things about the CAEL CE test is that when you start answering questions in each part, except for part 1, you're focused on the same subject and you get kind of familiar with the subject as you go along. And you can see for part 3, the speaking is based on listening. So you listen to audio, you listen to a dialogue, somebody speaking, and then you answer some questions yourself. Part 4 is long writing based on listening and reading. So it covers those 3 skills. Short writing is then based on listening or reading, which means that one of those will be chosen and you will have to focus more on either listening or reading. So Kim is just asking an interesting question. Are you covering speaking in all parts or only part 1? Well, we cover speaking whenever it's relevant. So in part 2, there will be a small part about speaking because there is a speaking part in part 2 of the test. You can see that on the screen. So yes, in lesson 2, there will be still some things related to speaking, though the lesson will mostly focus on reading. And then in lesson 3, there will be some things about speaking, but the lesson will be mostly about listening. Today, we're just focusing on speaking for part 1. Kirit is asking about the word limit for long and short writings. We will obviously talk more about those in lesson 4, but I can tell you that the word limit is more of a word minimum. So basically for long writing, you should write at least 250 words. And for short writing, you should write at least 100. Okay, so you can write more than that. So it's not really a word limit, it's a word minimum. But we will do writing in lesson 4. Okay, so I'd like to show you some of the subjects and topics that might be covered in the speaking questions. And each topic is taken from either the arts or science faculty. And these subjects can be used for all of the parts in the test, okay? So not just part 1. And let's think of some examples, please. I'd like to ask you what you think might be asked of you in the questions. And I have some example pictures as well that might give you an idea of what subjects to expect. So do you have any idea of what university subjects might be asked about in the questions? Any thoughts? So Isabella is saying literature. Yep, I definitely think literature will be an important one. Kim is asking about the percentage of speaking for part 1. So Kim, part 1 is all speaking, like every question is speaking. And then in parts 2 and 3, speaking is a much smaller thing. It's only a few questions, okay? So part 1 is actually 100% speaking. So Kim is also saying art, and Daniel is saying environment, geography perhaps. Daniel is also saying economics, and Fatima is saying physics. So I think, yeah, we're getting a lot of great ideas, and Harmel, thank you for your list. Visual arts, law, music, performing arts. So those are some great ideas. Oh, and Isabella is also asking, we don't have to know about the subjects beforehand. That's right, you don't need to know everything about these subjects. These are just examples of what you might hear in the test. So I'll just show you the list that we have here. These are some of the common subjects that you might see in the test, but there are also dozens and dozens more. So I'm just giving you these as an example of the kind of things you might see. Something that might be a little bit surprising as well is that criminology is counted within the art section. So criminology and political science are within the arts category. So you might have a question about those. I'm not sure if I fully understand your question, Kim, about the reading part. You mean where so the texts? The text could be from many different places. They're academically sourced, but I can't tell you exactly where they would be from. And we have a whole team that does and creates these questions. So something else I'd like to show you is that the CAEL has 9 band scores. And this is a kind of rough, simple breakdown of what each band score is like, just to give you an idea. And these score reports provide you with individual scores for each of the 4 skills assessed. So that means you will get a speaking score, a reading score, listening score, and writing. And then you get an overall score as well. So that means that each of the 4 skills is equally weighted for the overall score. And please make sure that you know what overall score you need for your faculty or the school that you're applying to, because some colleges might accept a band 70, some might accept a 60, and some might ask for an 80, which is pretty high and pretty difficult. So you do need to ask your school or your business, whatever company you're applying for, and ask them what level you need, what band score you need. Okay, so if you have any questions about that, please let me know as we go along. I'd also like to have a quick look now at the speaking component of the CAEL CE test. As I was trying to explain earlier, there are 5 speaking parts throughout the test, so they're not all in part 1. There's also a speaking question in part 2 and in part 3. So in this lesson, we're learning about part 1, so we're just going to be focused on the first 3 speaking tasks. Some of the things that you learned today, though, can be applied to the speaking tasks that are in part 2 and 3. Thanks for your comment, Kirit. That's interesting. Yes, CAEL is definitely more academic. This is the focus on academic English. Okay, so it's important to understand how your responses will be scored. So I'd like to start also by showing you the speaking checklist. And the long general section here can be used for all of the speaking tasks. Okay, so the first part, the general questions, can be used for all of the speaking questions. But at the bottom, there is a smaller section, and it's got 3 points. And that's for speaking on a visual. And we'll talk more about speaking on a visual later, which is a specific kind of question that's in the test. So when you're preparing and practicing for the test, try to record your responses on your smartphone or tablet or whatever, and use this checklist to evaluate how you're doing. And then you can think about what you did well and what you could do better and what you could improve upon. So I know some people have a smaller screen, so I'm going to show you this in a bit more detail. But I'd also like to let you know that we're going to send you an email later today, and the email will have your own copy of this checklist. So we're going to give you this checklist as well, so you can practice at home if you want. And this is a close-up of the speaking checklist, so you can see it more closely. Okay, so like I said, we're going to email this out later, and you can save your own personal copy. And I'd just like to go over a few of these points. So some of the important things to consider is that when you are speaking, it's good to speak at a good volume. So try not to speak too softly or too loudly, like you're shouting. Try to speak at a normal, natural pace and voice. So that also means trying to avoid minimal pausing and hesitations in number 2. Now, making some mistakes are okay, by the way. Native speakers make mistakes, of course. So if you make some small mistakes, that's not the biggest problem. The problem is to make sure you're trying to maintain a regular pace, a regular speed, and that the listener can easily understand your meaning. So speaking at a good speed, not too fast, not too slow, trying to stick to a rhythm, and of course, pronouncing words correctly, and using the correct intonation. And also, this is a good chance, or at least part of the important part of this test, is that it's important to show your words and phrases, to show that you understand academic English. So try to use a variety of words and phrases that you know, and try to use your vocabulary in a way that's very precise. So if you're not sure about the meaning, then try not to use it in that way. Try to use the words that you know precisely. Now, the other important thing, of course, is to speak in complete sentences and to use a variety of sentence structures. Number 9 says, does the speaker clearly state his or her main idea? So it's always good to introduce your speaking with a very clear beginning, a very clear introduction. And then number 10 says, does the speaker provide specific examples and details? This is also, of course, very important because you need to refer to the information that you have in the question and to make sure that you're answering that question directly. And that's what number 11 means. Does the speaker remain on topic? So it's very important to make sure that you read the question very carefully and the instructions, and you know what you're looking for, and then focus only on answering that question. Don't talk about things that are not related to the question. Okay, so number 12 says, is the speaker's tone appropriate for the social context of the task? So for example, if you're talking to your professor, if you're imagining that you're talking to a professor, you need to be respectful and tactful and maybe a little bit formal so it suits the situation. Number 13 says, is the response organized and easy to follow? So again, this is related to being clear and easy to understand. And does the speaker use appropriate linking words and phrases? So transition words, things like because, therefore, so, those kind of words. And also negative words like however and but, just to make sure that you're linking your ideas together logically. And then another thing is to try to avoid repeating your ideas too much. It might happen naturally, but try to avoid repeating the same ideas and the same words again and again. And does the speaker conclude with an appropriate closing remark? It's good to end your response within the time and just to have a kind of final summary, a conclusion. Does the speaker speak for the entire time? That means not wasting time, not leaving 10 or 20 seconds at the end with blank space. And also, does the speaker's response fully answer the question? So I think that one's pretty clear. It just means that you do stick to what the question is asking and that you're only relating your thoughts and ideas to that question. The last one, speaking on a visual. We'll look more at speaking on a visual in detail later. But the interesting thing is that since this has a picture, it's important to describe and explain the information that you see in the picture, in the graph, and also to identify general trends. We'll talk more about what that means later when we look at speaking on a visual, but you also have to draw conclusions that are realistic based on the graph data. So we'll explain that in detail in a bit more time. Kim is asking, do I need to think of having a nice hook for the introduction? Well, it's certainly a good thing, Kim. It's not always possible to come up with an introduction that you're 100% happy with, but definitely I think it's good to try to come up with an introduction that's clear, focused on your topic, and so the listener, the raters, can understand what you're saying and they know exactly what you're going to do. So yes, that is important. I think coming up with a good introduction is very important. Okay, so this is just what the test looks like. You have preparation and recording time for each speaking task. There is an example picture of preparation time on the left and what the recording time looks like on the right. And so you can see for preparation time, you can see the number of seconds you have counting down until it gets to 0. Once it gets to 0, it changes to recording time, which is a microphone picture. And the microphone picture has a gray bar that moves up and down to show how loud you're speaking. So you'll know that your microphone is working because you can see the gray icon moving up and down. And if you haven't taken the CAEL CE free online sample test, I really recommend that you do that because it's free and it will give you a great idea of what the test is like. And when you're recording, you'll see a blue bar move from left to right, and that just counts your time. So when the blue bar is finished, then your time is over. So when you're speaking, just look at that blue bar and try to summarize what you're saying before you run out of time. Okay, so if you want, you can take notes. During the test, you do have preparation paper. So feel free to make notes if you want. And I'd like to ask you, since you don't really have that much time, how would you take notes in the actual exam, the actual test? If you were writing down your notes, what would you do? And so we have two questions here. What would you do during your preparation time? And what would you do to make the most of your recording time? So please feel free to answer those in the questions box if you have any idea about how you could use your preparation time to take notes and how you could start your response and what you would do with your recording time. Okay, so Kirit is saying keywords, and I agree, Kirit. I think that's a very good way to focus your response. Any keywords that you notice, and then they can trigger your memory when you're talking. So yes, definitely for your notes, you could start with an introduction and some keywords. And Kirit is also saying the ending note. Yes, so having a rough introduction and a rough conclusion would be good. Isabella is saying follow easy topics. So perhaps maybe listing the topics of what you want to talk about in order. Like number 1, I'm going to talk about this. Number 2, blah, blah, blah. Okay, yeah. And Jolu is saying organize the thoughts and give 2 points. Okay, so maybe 2 or 3 points that you want to cover during the actual response. Okay, I think 3 is a good number to aim for that. All right, so let me have a look at some breakdown that we made for you. These are just some examples of how you can use your preparation time and your recording time in order to give a full response. So for the preparation time, something that's important to do is to read the instructions very carefully to make sure that you understand the question and what exactly is being asked. Sometimes you will have sources, so something to read or something to listen. Sorry, not listen, something to sort of read again. With the listening passage, we'll talk more about that in lesson 3. But basically, if you have some notes, you can look at those again and review them before you answer. You can brainstorm ideas. You could make a small word list or a bubble on your notepaper and just brainstorm some ideas that come to you. And then you can choose the strongest ideas that you have and use those to organize your response. And like some people have said in the comments, like Kirit, you can write down key vocabulary words that you want to cover. For the recording time, try to use your notes to stay focused. Try to begin with a clear introduction statement so that the raters know what you're going to talk about and they know what your subject is. Follow up with your main points. I think about 3 points is good to cover as a general rule. Support each point with details and use suitable transitions. Finally, end with a concluding statement if you have one, and speak for the full length of time. So those are all things to bear in mind. Isabella is asking how much prep time we have. The prep time does vary for the different question types, so you'll see that as we do the examples today. So each question type might have a different prep time, and I'll show you those soon. Okay, so before we begin to look at each of those question types, I'd like to take a moment to better understand what we mean when we talk about academic speaking skills. I've got 2 questions on the screen now, and I'd like you to respond to those questions by typing your answers in the question in the question box. And then I'd like to share some of your ideas with the group. So question 1 says, what is academic speaking? And question 2 says, how is it different from daily English? So please let me know what you think in the questions box, and I'll try to read some of your answers. Yes, Kim, by the way, Kim, we'll be talking more about types A and type B very soon. We'll go through the question types. Okay, so Kirit is saying that it's a specific subject. So academic speaking might be based on a specific subject. It's more focused perhaps than regular English. Isabella is saying academic speaking is formal, uses a more formal style. Yep, thank you. And daily English uses more idioms, says Arlen. That's a good point, although formal English could still use idiomatic language and metaphor. Ahmed is saying it's either about the science or arts. For this test, I guess it is, yes. But of course, in general, academic English might be on different subjects as well. Academic speaking is what you explain your idea using academic words and clearly state your points. That's from Daniel. So thank you, Daniel. Yeah, definitely you do need to make arguments. You need to make points. So for academic listening, academic speaking, I mean, it's important to express your opinion to the reader or the listener in a way where they can understand your ideas and you're trying to persuade them to consider that you're correct. So it is definitely different from daily English. Hamel is saying also that academic English pertains to understanding the topic, grasping ideas, and using examples to draw references and your own conclusions, which I think is a great way to say it. And looks more professional and specific. Okay, SM, thank you. All right, and Melody says academic is a formal style. Okay, so I think, yes, we covered the main ideas there. I'd like to show you the breakdown that we have. So for daily English, we said, of course, that it's more informal and you can use more slang and colloquialisms that you really can't in formal English. Also, daily English is more general, whereas academic English should be more specific and accurate. You should be more precise with what you're saying. Daily English can also be more subjective, which means you can use your personal opinions a bit more, and it doesn't need to be based on fact, perhaps. But with academic English, you should be trying to persuade somebody that you're correct using facts and examples to support your idea. So daily English can be imprecise, repetitive, but academic English should be more focused. And daily English can be off topic. Academic English should, of course, be on topic at all times, especially for this kind of test. With daily English, you can ramble. You can talk a bit more about just general ideas without any specific point. But with academic English, you should throw that away and cut it down to the most specific thing and avoid repetition. And you might do that when you're writing as well, of course. You need to take away your best ideas and cut them down to the main points. Now, for daily English, you can use short sentences and sentence fragments and run-on sentences. But with academic English, it's best to be more grammatical and think about the structure of your sentence a bit more and try to use some complex sentences that express more ideas. And I think that's something that Kim said as well. Okay, so I'm going to look at type A now. So this is the first speaking question. And like I said, we call it type A. And what important points do you guys see here? So if you look at the screen now, this is an example of what it looks like on the test screen when it shows you type A questions. And you can see the instructions are on the left and the time is in the top corner. So what would you look for? What details do you think are important before you even answer the question? So this is just your preparation time and you have this screen. What would you be looking for? What details are important to consider? Okay, so if you have any ideas, please let me know. Ahmed is saying the time, and I think that's a very important one. So you can see in the top right corner, you have 30 seconds preparation time, and then 60 seconds speaking time. So yes, Joe Lu is also saying that the time is important first. Isabella is saying what and why. So I guess you mean the details of the question, right, Isabella? So I agree. Definitely, it's important to read those 2 bullet points, or they could be more. It's important to read those instructions and make sure that you understand what they're asking. So in this example, as Daniel just said, we need to give details and examples, and that's very important. So to make sure that you're actually answering the question correctly, you need to give details and examples that support your response, and then you will be evaluated on the content of your response and the accuracy of your language. So it's important to bear those things in mind when you're answering the question. So Kim is asking, I think, a good question. This question is personal, so how can I give it more as academic speaking? Well, the interesting thing about that is that in university or college or higher education, you still have many social situations, right? And the great thing about the CAEL test is that it also has questions that are based on the social situations that you might have in college. So it's not just lectures, it's also that social side. So you can answer this question being a bit more personal and sort of explaining your personal opinions, but you just need to give some reasons and examples that support your personal opinion. So it's a bit different from daily English, because with daily English, you don't necessarily need to care about whether your response has any supporting evidence, but here you should just give some reasons why. So, for example, I'm really interested in being a vet, and that is because I have a strong interest in taking care of animals and I care about animals. And so you're just giving those reasons why. Kirat, you're asking, is it good to wrap up the speech in 55 seconds? Well, the speaking time is 60, so as close as possible to 60 seconds is the best. And it is good to try and wrap it up as much as you can. So if you have a good ending sentence, then that's fantastic. If you get cut off a little bit, it might not be the end of the world, but it's not ideal. So it is good to try and wrap it up as much as you can. All right, so let's look at the important points that you need to pick up on each time you look at a new question. So we kind of talked a little bit about this already. So we have the time, we have the instructions, and there's also something that you need to check about the question itself, because the question might be asking more than one thing. So it says, what do you want to study at university and why? So it's important to say both the subject and also to explain why in specific detail. Okay, so I'm going to play you now some audio, and this is a test taker responding to this question. Okay, so it's the same question. What do you want to study at university and why? And he answers his response within 60 seconds, of course. And I just like to listen carefully and ask you what you notice about this response. What does this test taker do well? And what are things that he could have done better? Okay, so things that he could improve. And I will also show you the checklist again as well in a moment so that you can think about that. But basically, yes, I'm going to play the test taker now. And one thing to bear in mind, though, is that this test taker has a very quiet voice. Oh, so there he is. So I recommend that you turn up your volume a little bit and try to listen carefully. And if you can't hear him, just try your best at first. He's just very softly spoken. Okay, so here we go.
I want to study at university because I believe it's important for students who have passions to take themselves into a place where they can develop it academically by meeting professors who are well versed in the field and also meeting other students in the same age who are also passionate about the same things as you are. I want to study in this kind of academic zone where your passions and your favorite topics and subjects in high school can be really examined and pinpointed, so you can find out how you can develop and find and discover more about yourself. Also professionally, I believe that university is a great place for you to go develop your skills into relevant job skills as well. So your talents and your interests can also be relevant outside of class.
Okay, so he wrapped up before the time was over, which is nice. And I just want to show you the speaking checklist again, so you can see the speaking checklist. I will also show you his transcript. So if you didn't hear him very well, don't worry, I'll show you the transcript of what he said. Please just quickly have a look at this checklist again so you can remember some of these ideas. And then we can talk about what he did well and what could have been improved, what could have been better. So please take a quick look at the checklist. And of course, if you have any questions, please ask me. I'll try my best to answer. And this is a transcript of his response. So even if you didn't hear him so well, this is what he said. So please let me know what you think he did well and what you think could have been improved. So if you have any ideas, please let me know. I'll try to read them for the whole group. Okay, so Kim is saying vague content. That's an interesting point. Would you mind maybe explaining a little bit more, Kim? So Ahmed does point out that he has a low volume. That's not something that affects his score that much though, because although this recording is a little bit quiet, he was still very clearly spoken. And when you listen to the original version, he does sound a bit more clear. Isabella is saying he didn't answer what he wants to study. That's interesting. Yeah, so, and Ahmed is saying the same thing. He didn't answer the first part of the question, what? So yes, he could have been more specific about his subject. And also some unnecessary pauses, says Chris. Yeah, so I think people are noticing some similar things. Hamel is also saying there is a repetitive use of some of these words. Do you have a specific example, Hamel? And so Melody is also saying he does not answer the first part of the question. So Hamel is saying he repeats the word passionate, is that right? Yes, he repeats the word passion. Yeah, and filler words like Yeah, of course, when you're speaking, it's best to avoid saying and too much. It's okay to say it once or twice because it's natural to make those kind of mistakes and pause. But if it happens all the time, then it might be a bit more of a problem. Okay, so I want to also show you some of the things that the the raters mentioned about this. So the raters rated his response, and they pointed out some things that he did well and some things that could have been better. So some things that we've underlined here are some points of interest. These are examples of when he used some specific interesting words. Like people have been saying in the comments, he does say and a little bit, but it's not too bad. Now, for the content of his response, the test takers, for the content of the test taker's response, the rater says that he does very well. They make three main points. They say he makes three main points. He develops his passion academically. He says you can learn more about yourself, and he can develop relevant job skills. And he stays on topic and is well organized, but he does lack some transition words, which is unfortunate. He also uses many strong words and phrases, and those are the words and phrases that we have underlined. So those ones are strong because they're very precise, and he uses a variety of sentence types. Like people have been saying in the comments though, he does say so and kind of and are a little bit too much. For delivery skills though, he has a fast speaking speed. His intonation is a little off sometimes. It's kind of a little too slow, a little too mellow. But he does have a good volume, rhythm, pronunciation in the original recording. And I'd like to tell you that this test taker scored a band 80 in CAEL CE Speaking, a band 80. So this means that some responses might be higher or lower, but overall, based on his responses to all 5 questions in the, all 5 speaking questions in this test, this test taker's speaking ability is a CAEL band 80. So it doesn't necessarily mean that this response is a band 80, but that taken all together, the 5 speaking tasks that he does in the test are weighted at being 80. Okay. Matab is just saying, how do you calculate 60 seconds? Because it depends on the speaking speed. Just try to speak as much as you personally can to answer your response. And the timing is just part of the test. So what I'd like to do is also give you guys a chance to practice this for yourself. Now, you've heard of test takers, you know what it's like, but this is hopefully to give you a chance to see what it's like to have some preparation time, 30 seconds, and then to answer the question in 60 seconds. So I'd like you to imagine that you, oh, and Kim, I just want to point out, Kim is just saying that it doesn't seem that missing the point is that important. But remember, Kim, that this is just one of the speaking tasks that he did. So even if he didn't score perfectly in this speaking task, his score in the other speaking tasks were high enough that he still got a band 80. Okay? So even if that one response is not perfect, it is the entire test. So that's 5 speaking parts, 5 speaking tasks. All right, so again, I'd like you to imagine that you are in the test and you have the preparation time and recording time for real. So it's 30 seconds preparation time, 60 seconds speaking time. And I'd like you to record yourself. I think it would be very helpful to practice for the test. So if you have a recording device like your phone or a tablet, you can start and stop. And what I'm going to do is give you a time. So we've prepared a video that has a time limit for you. You don't see this time in the real test, of course, but we're just doing this for the examples today. So please use your phone or something to record yourself, and that way you can listen back to it later and practice this and get ready for the actual test. And also, this is a great way to imagine what the test is like, even if you haven't tried it before. So in a minute, I'm going to start the timer and show you a brand new question. Okay, so it's going to be a different question. Same type, it's going to be a type A question, but a different question. Okay, so how do you guys feel? Do you feel ready? And Melody is saying 60 seconds speaking time. That's right, Melody. So it's 30 seconds preparation time and then 60 seconds speaking time. Isabella says she's ready, so thank you, Isabella. I hope it goes well. Okay, so if you're ready, let's try this, okay? So it's gonna be a brand new question. I'll give you 30 seconds to read and prepare, and then 60 seconds to answer the question, and you can record yourself. Of course, I can't hear you, okay? So don't worry about that. Okay, so here we go. Oh, my computer stopped. Okay, there we go. 30 seconds starting now. Okay, everybody, so preparation time is over. Please get your recording device ready. And this is 1 minute, 60 seconds, starting 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so please stop. Please stop your recording. Okay, so I'd like to just ask you about your speaking. How did that go? I'm just showing you the speaking checklist again quickly. So please tell me what you think went well and what could have been better. Oh, Hamal, yeah, since you did the online test, I guess you do have some experience with this, so that's great. Feel free to do whatever is useful for you. Oh, and Melody has just left. So sorry about that, Melody. I guess I missed that one. Okay, so please let me know, guys, how you did and what could have been better. Okay, so Kim is saying, oh, you're asking a question, Kim? How to get a nice introduction and conclusion? I think making your introduction first is very important. So if you have your notes and you make a very rough idea of what to say, starting with a strong introduction will really help. And then the conclusion doesn't need to be quite as strong as the introduction because you can kind of think about that a bit more as you're speaking. But definitely starting on a strong introduction will help. So Kirit, remember during your 30 seconds preparation time, you do need to read the question and read the times and make sure that you're ready. So it is a lot to do in 30 seconds, but you need to quickly scan the computer screen, maybe make some notes. You don't have to make notes, of course. That's just a suggestion. You can do whatever works for you. So if you don't feel like note-taking is useful, you don't have to do that. So SM is saying pausing and repeating myself is terrible. Sorry to hear that, SM, but I'm sure you did well on many points. And hopefully you can do better as you do again if you practice some more. So Matab is saying that he only spoke for about 56 seconds instead of 60. That doesn't sound so bad as long as you were summarizing the main points. But that is also something where you could work to improve. So you could try to make it more like 59 seconds next time. So I answered the questions, but I finished what I wanted to say in 50 seconds. So that's a little bit of a waste of time, unfortunately, because that is 10 seconds. So it would be good to kind of space out your points a little bit more and try to get used to that time. Yeah, it's not easy. I'm just reading your comments as well. So Sarah is saying the time was difficult, so she had to summarize. Pauline is saying, do you have to use your hands? Pauline, the actual test is done on a computer and you speak into a microphone. So you definitely do not need to use your hands. There is not an actual person with you. It's done into a computer. So hopefully that's less stressful. But yeah, you don't need to gesture. You don't need to show your hands. Okay, so Isabella is also saying that she repeated some idea, the same idea. That's something we can hopefully practice and get better at. So Joe Liu is just asking about what to do to support the topics. And just try, obviously it's not the same for everybody, but do try to just think of a reason why you feel that way. So for example, if you want to be a doctor, why do you want to be a doctor? Do you actually want to help people? Are you doing it because your family was a doctor, you know, like your father was a doctor or something like that? Just what is the reason? And then you can maybe think of why that is. Yeah, so Hamel is saying that there might be some anxiety when recording starts. So that is definitely something to get used to. And that's why practicing can be so helpful. I agree, though. It's definitely not easy to answer these kind of things very quickly. So that's why we've also got some key strategies for you to maybe help you a little bit. So some key strategies we wanted to point out is that it's good to try to quickly decide what you're going to talk about. So even if you're not like 100% happy with that, at least just think of something as fast as you can, and you can use that to base your response. Try to think of at least 2 supporting ideas. And it could be 3, but 2 or 3 is a good number. It's probably not good to start making more and more ideas because then you will have too much to talk about. And remember, it is only a 60-second time limit. So try to think of 2 or 3 supporting ideas and provide details and examples for each of those ideas. And like I said, if you're having a tough time thinking of something, remember also that you don't have to be telling the exact truth about your personal life. It needs to be supported with reasons and evidence. But if you're still kind of thinking about your situation and you're not 100% sure, it is okay for you to kind of be creative and make it up a little bit. So for example, if you're not sure what job you want to have in the future, you can still kind of choose one for the answer. Like, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a graphics designer, even if you're not 100% sure. And you can start with a clear and informative statement. That's very good if you can. Try to focus on the introduction so that you know exactly what you want to say when the recording time starts. And that way you don't sit there thinking, you can just answer right away. And then as you're talking, your response can become more and more personal because you can give personal examples about yourself. Okay, so I do think that making that clear introduction statement is an important one if you have the time in your preparation time to think about that and to focus on that. So please let me know if you have any questions or comments as we go along, because we're now going to look at speaking type B, and this is a little bit different. So speaking type B is, you can see the instructions are on the left and the instructions are the same. as before, except there are two things that are different. Does anyone notice what's different? If you know, please let me know in the questions box, okay? Oh, okay, so great. Kim and Katerina, sorry if I said your name wrong. You're pointing out that the time is different, and that's right. The time now has changed from 60 seconds preparation time and 90 seconds speaking time. And this question type is also a little bit different as well. You can see that it says, in your opinion, what are some of the strengths of high school education in your home country? Okay, so this is because the question is a little bit more complicated. So we have a bit more time. And I'd just like to know if you have any personal ideas about how you could answer this question and what you would say if you had this question. So think about the education system you had in your home country and where you grew up when you were a child. And please tell me one good thing about it and maybe one bad thing or some weakness that could be improved. And mostly focusing on the strength. What was good about your home country? So if you have any ideas, please let me know in the questions box. Thank you, Pauline. Pauline is saying, think about your own experience with relevant examples to connect with arguments. Yeah, that's correct, Pauline. That's definitely something we should be doing with this test in general. Yeah. And Kim is asking, if there isn't any strength, can I make it up? Yeah, you could, Kim. It's not a truth-telling test, so it is okay to be a little bit creative and use your imagination. But I find it hard to believe that there's like no strength about your home country at all, Kim. I assume you mean maybe Vietnam, but in Vietnam, is there no strength to the school system? I'm sure there must be something. Do you need to compare or only state your home country? That's a good question. You don't necessarily need to compare directly, but you can compare it to other countries if you know what points you want to say. So for example, I think my home country's education system is really strong in perhaps writing or something like that. We're very good with writing. And compared to what I know of the Canadian system, blah, blah, blah. And you could perhaps do that a little bit. But it's not necessarily to focus your whole response about comparison. It's just talking about your own home country. So Daniel is suggesting that structure, for example, introduction plus a point, specific details, examples, conclusion. That's one thing you could do. Another thing is just simply to start by introducing your home country and then introduce maybe 2 or 3 strengths. And for each reason, for each point, give a reason why it's strong, okay? And then you can do a quick conclusion at the end. Okay, so Asim is saying the good thing is the dedication of subjects based on your career. So you mean in your country that they are good with focusing on your future job? Because that could be something to talk about for sure. Oh, thanks for letting me know. That's interesting. In Vietnam, we have some good learning investment from Australia, but the majority of the education system is still an old way and different from North America. Daniel is asking, do we need authority when we are explaining the points? If I understand you correctly, it's good to sound sure, it's good to sound confident about what you're saying, but I'm not sure if you need to sound like you know everything. Just that in your personal experience, what did you feel and what did you learn about the education system? And Isabella is pointing out that in Brazil, you can go to public universities. Yes, I do know a little bit about the Brazil system, and I think it's actually a pretty interesting one. We've talked about that before with Brazilian students. So yes, these are all things you can talk about with the response, and of course it's a personal response, so it obviously depends on the person. And what I'd like to do now is play the same test taker that you heard before. So if you remember, this person got a band score of 80. That doesn't mean that this response is an 80, but that his overall score for the 5 speaking tasks is an 80. Okay, so I'd like to play this response for you now. If you had trouble hearing him, please turn up your volume as high as you can, because he is a little bit soft-spoken.
I think some of the strengths of high school education in Canada is that we emphasize history in Canada in a way that does not diminish other countries outside of Canada. Unlike other countries, we do focus on the more global scale of learning where all parts of history is encouraged to be examined. And also, I feel like high school education in Canada also focuses on the importance of mental health and there's a lot of support and counseling, which really helps students, especially in high school level students where they are particularly more fragile mentally. And I think clubs are encouraged. The fact that clubs are encouraged is also a great thing about the Canadian high school system, because it really encourages them to develop and reflect on their interests and work towards something that they can be proud of and passionate about. Another thing that I feel like is really important and good about the Canadian high school system is the fact that scholarships are given out to reward hard work, and also that field trips are encouraged for educational purposes, which really offers just an incentive and also a new perspective in which to consider education under respectively. And I think those are all just like great points about the education system.
Okay, so I'm just showing you the speaking checklist again. So I'd just like to ask you, what do you think he did well and what could have been better? Okay, and I'll also like to show you his transcript just in case you couldn't hear him that well. So what was good about his response and what was perhaps a little bit weak and could have been better? Oh, so Hamel, you think he sounds like a winner, or are you using an example there? Just to make sure I understand your comment. Oh, a 90 score. So you think he's really good here? Yeah, so definitely overall he scored a band 80 overall based on the 5 speaking tasks. Kim points out, though, he should mention his country of origin. Let's just double check the question as well. I guess, though, Kim, it doesn't specifically ask you to name the country, though, right? It says, in your opinion, what are some of the strengths of high school education in your home country? So I agree with you that it does make sense to say what the country is, but it's not something that you have to do based on the question, if you see what I mean. And Daniel points out he has a lot of supporting ideas, which is great. And less filler words and pauses this time, Curate says. Yeah, I agree. And Isabella has actually noticed something. Yes, this person might be from Canada. So this sample response could be from a native speaker. He uses a lot of and ahs again, though. So, sometimes, yeah, I don't think it's too bad, though, right? It's there's a couple of them, but not to an unnatural degree. But there is some repetition of the transition words, Daniel says, like such as and. Okay, so I'll let you know what the raters said. The raters said that for content, his response was very strong because he clearly states the main idea at the beginning. I think some of the strengths of high school education in Canada is that we emphasize history in Canada. So Kim, actually, I do think we might have missed something there, right? His home country is in fact Canada. So we can assume that this person is a native speaker of English. And I can tell you that that is the case, actually. Now, he also has a great conclusion at the end. I think those are all just great points about the education system. So he does wrap up what he's saying. He doesn't just let the time run out. He stops what he's saying. He also makes 5 points. Okay, so the rater says he makes 5 points. Number 1 is he emphasizes history. Number 2, he focuses on mental health. Number 3, he talks about clubs, extracurricular clubs in school. Number 4, he talks about scholarships, okay, scholarships. And number 5, he talks about field trips. So for all of these 5 things, he's saying what the high schools in Canada do that are really good, okay? And for accuracy of language, he was very strong. He spoke at a fast speed, he had a good volume, and a strong intonation. So of course, remember, we can assume he is a native speaker, and he scored a test band 80 overall. So if you can cover this kind of points and mention in specific detail about your school, that will help you to score strongly in this kind of question. Okay, and just another thing, I just want to highlight the points that he made that were really strong. So these are the 5 things that he said, the 5 categories, and also the strong point about it is that these words are very specific. Okay, so these words give you a very clear image of what he's talking about. Okay, all right, so I'd like to again give you a chance to practice a question. So I will give you a new type B question, a different question. And again, you will have preparation time and recording time, but this time the preparation time will be 60 seconds and the recording time will be 90 seconds. And I'll again tell you when to start and when to stop using those timers. So if you guys are ready, please let me know. I just want to make sure that you're okay. Of course, if you don't want to, you don't have to, but I do think it is a useful way to practice and to get a feel for what it's like to answer these questions in the time. So I'm going to give you a new question now, a new type B question. And remember that you do need to use that 1-minute preparation time to quickly read the information on the screen, read the question, and think about what you want to say. So here we go. Okay, so 1 minute is starting now. 1-minute preparation. Okay, preparation time's over. Let's try 1 minute 30, recording time starting now. Okay, everybody, please stop. Time's up. And please let me know in the questions box how it went. Did it go better than last time? And what do you think went well and what could have been better? I'm just going to put the speaking checklist on the screen again. So you can think about what you did well and what could have been better. And please let me know. I'd be very interested to see how that went. Oh, great. So Kirat is saying it went way better than last time, which is good news. Matab is saying the time was better because I kind of know how to answer this question. Okay, good, good. Joe Liu is saying it took a longer time to prepare so he could list the points. Okay, good, yeah, so if the preparation time was more helpful this time, then that's fantastic. Oh, that's interesting, Asem. What mistakes did you make, if you don't mind me asking? Feel free to let me know. 30 seconds to finish it, Ahmed. You mean you really went overtime, or that you actually left 30 seconds before the end? Because Fatima is also saying it wasn't quite able to speak for the full time. Oh, okay, so you're in the school library, Isabella. That's okay. Well, don't worry if you can't do these exactly. That makes sense. So Ahmed, so the time was not enough. Okay, yeah. Maybe listing some points to help give you structure could be helpful. Yeah, so Daniel is pointing out that when you're listing ideas, it's not like writing an essay. So when you're speaking, you do still need to construct your sentences and think about what you're going to say. So with note-taking, of course, you can do whatever is useful for you. So for some people, it might be making notes, like as a bullet point. And some people might find that just writing a few keywords is enough. And that kind of depends on the person. Oh, Harmel, your talk lacked specific examples. Okay, thanks for letting me know. So this is something you could perhaps improve upon if we did this kind of thing again. And definitely practice makes perfect. Practice is always good with these kind of tests, or just English in general, learning a language. Unfortunately, Kim, I can't really answer that question for you because it's based on a very complicated rating system. So I can't say exactly what it would be for each question. Oh, that's a good point, Kirat. Kirat is saying I need to focus on 2 to 3 ideas with an example, and that helped him this time, or her. So I agree. I think focusing on 2 or 3 points is a good way to go, and also up to 5 if you have time. Okay, so Matab says you can't see the time while speaking. I don't know what your situation is right now, but of course in the actual test you would be able to see the time. You would be able to see it on the screen. And I'll just show that again. Because in the test you would see the numbers counting down. Okay, so let's move on a little bit. And I'm going to give you some key strategies for type B questions that you can use to help. A major point is to think of at least 3 ideas to support your opinion. Having 3 or 4 or 5 is a good number, as you do have to cover a lot within the time. Open with a general statement or a firm statement of opinion. So you could kind of give an overview of your subject, or you could begin by saying something like, my school system was very poor or very strong in these areas. And so you can start with a stronger statement if you want. It's good either way to start with a clear statement. So try to think of something that you want to introduce your subject with when you're using your preparation time. And whenever you change to a new idea, whenever you list a new thing, use transition words and clearly explain that you're talking about a new subject. Try to provide unbiased information and include basic facts and a short personal story, so some personal examples. And remember, they don't have to be 100% true. It's okay to kind of think creatively, and give those to support your opinions. Try to leave time for a short wrap-up statement. So just when you're speaking toward the end, try to make sure that you do end with a statement that sounds like a conclusion, rather than just running out of time. Oh, Kim is asking, what do we mean by unbiased information? That's a good question, yes. Unbiased information basically means that you're not trying to say your opinion is 100% correct. So basically, so it's just, for example, if I'm talking about the education system in Canada, just like that response, he said, for example, scholarships. So he's not making something up. He's saying something that actually happens in Canada, right? So he's just saying scholarships could be a useful way that our education system offers students. He's not saying, I personally think this is 100% the best thing about Canada. He's saying this is one of the good things that the Canadian education system offers. So it's good to try and sound kind of neutral and kind of academic when you're explaining these reasons. So even though it's your opinion, it still sounds like something that other people will agree with, not just only your opinion. I hope that makes sense. It's a kind of difficult point to explain sometimes, but just so it doesn't sound like you're only personally talking about what you believe. Okay, so you're welcome, Kim. We're going to look at the final task, and I always find this one very interesting. This one's a little bit more challenging, perhaps, because it does involve looking at a chart or a graph and summarizing the information that you see in that chart or graph. So please let me know what things that you notice here. What things are different in the instructions here? Wendy, you just joined. Basically, we're near the end of this lesson. We've got about another 20 minutes to go. And you are welcome to join next week. We do lesson 2 next week and then lesson 3 the next week. And we are doing 4 lessons in this course. So you can come again in the future. That's fine with me. That'd be great. But unfortunately, yes, you did miss most of the speaking lesson today. Okay, so Ahmed is saying no time. There is time, Ahmed, in the bottom part of the instructions in the second sentence. So Kim points out it's a different content, okay? Does this include a pie chart? Well, I can't say 100% yes or no, but the example that we're looking at today does not include a pie chart. I'll show you the chart soon. Wendy is just asking about the writing lesson. The writing lesson will be part 4, okay? So if you only want to see writing, that lesson will be part 4, which focuses on part 4 and 5 of the test. All right, guys, so let me just show you what I was looking for specifically. So it says your ability to reference details in the image is important, okay? So in the instructions, you need to refer to the things that you see in the image. Thank you, Daniel, as well. Daniel pointed that out. And the time is different. You have 1 minute to prepare and 2 minutes to respond, okay? So this is a lot of information, perhaps, and I'm going to show you an example now. So this is an example image that you might see in this kind of test question, this task. So here is the actual question. And as I just mentioned, you'll be marked on how well you reference the details in the image as well. So if you look at this chart, non-resident travelers to Canada, what details do you think you could talk about based on this picture, based on this image? So please let me know if you have any ideas, just using the information that's there in the chart, okay, in the graph. You don't need to use any other information, just the stuff that you can see. Okay, so curate tourism, yep. This is obviously all about, but well, potentially a lot of the people who travel into Canada are coming for tourism. Not all of them, but perhaps a lot of them. Ahmed is saying the starting points and ends. Okay, so perhaps how much things change over time. And I think Pauline is mentioning that also, the correlation between this data. Daniel mentions the economy, economically. So that's an interesting point, Daniel, but I don't think that information is specifically mentioned in the chart. That might be something where you can draw upon your own knowledge to answer that part. We'll talk more about that in a minute. So Ahmed is saying the comparison between the land, air, and sea. Yeah, thank you. Potential new immigrants or, well, yes, it could be immigrants, travelers, so business trips, and just tourism as well. They may not all be coming for the same reason, of course. And Matad is saying that in 2014, the amount of travelers to Canada overall decreases, which is an interesting point. And yes, the general trends that we see, the modes of transportation also. So yes, so let me just clarify something here. It says non-resident travelers, okay? Non-resident. So we can assume that the people are traveling on vacation or for business or family reasons, okay? And we have a time span of the year 2013 to 2016. We also have the number of travelers, okay? You can see the number of travelers on the left. And you can see 3 different types of travel: land, air, and sea. So if you look at the instructions, it says, describe and explain the information you see depicted in the graph. What conclusions can you draw? I'd like to know, what else could you do? What else would you do in this situation? Sam is saying you can forecast the number of travelers that would be in 2017 and 2018. Yes, definitely toward the end of your response, you could say that I think these trends will continue. And since the number has been increasing, it could continue to increase into 2017 and 2018. That's fantastic. So yes, right, Kim, that's making a prediction. But that's at the end of the response. What other things can you talk about? And I think some people have made some points here that's kind of related. We also have a comment saying there is a big population using air for traveling. Traveling by sea seems not very popular, which could be easy to understand as it does not offer much advantage to travel from country to country, especially from a time perspective. Wow, that's a very good point. A lot of information there. So that would give you a lot of things to talk about as well. And it could show the importance of the airline industry. Thank you, Kirat. And Daniel is saying it might need to mention the difference between the 3 lines. Yeah, so there is a huge difference between air travel and land travel, right? A huge difference. Air travel is definitely the most popular way, for sure. And most of the travelers by land might be from the United States, must be from the United States, says Isabella. So that's a good point as well. Just using logic, you can understand that land travelers must be from the United States. So that's something you can mention in your response, that people are moving from moving from the United States into Canada during these years to travel. Okay. So I've got a lot of interesting ideas, and I really appreciate your responses here. And Kim is just pointing out as well that traveling by sea and, well, just sea, I guess, stabilizes over time. All right, so these are some of the main points, and we have basically talked about these because I think everyone has a lot of interesting ideas, and there's so many comments. So thanks everybody for your comments. These are just some examples of the main points you could talk about if you had this example. So of course, some of the things we talked about already. Some of the other things, of course, is that the overall trend, all 3 of these things increase over time. But the biggest increase is the plane. Air travel is by far the most popular. Both plane and land travel dip slightly in 2014, and I think some people said that. In 2014, it goes down slightly. But the boat and the ship's numbers, the sea numbers, are fairly steady, but they're always very small numbers. Sea travel is the least popular. Now, more people visited Canada in 2016 than in 2013. And of course, the biggest increase were people traveling by plane. And like we said before, at the end of your comment, if you're responding to this question, you can make a prediction, some speculation about what could happen next. So you could say, for example, I think these trends will increase in the future, and I think 2017 will be more popular than 2016. Just an example. So it's good to use that kind of information to make a prediction about what will happen next. Okay, so I have a sample response from the test taker to show you now. It's the same test taker as before, of course, and he is a band 80. So if you're ready, I'm going to play him now. So please, if you find him too quiet, please put up your volume. Okay, so here we go.
Okay. So on this chart, it goes over the non-resident travels to Canada, and it's from the date range of 2013 to 2016. And it considers 3 factors: land, air, and sea. And on the left side of the axis, it considers the number of travelers starting from the bottom at 0 up to 5 million. And just by looking at the information, I can see that air travel is the most popular way for non-resident travelers to come to Canada. And followed by that is land, and the bottom is sea. And air travel is by far the most popular way of traveling. It never dips below 3.5 million travelers, and at its peak right now at 2016, it's at 4.5 million travelers. And land and sea in comparison barely make it to 1 million around 2016. And this information is given by Sources Statistics Canada. And as I can see now, at 2014, there is a dip in air travel for some reason, where it goes down about 250,000 travelers, going down from around 3.7 million travelers in 2013 to just 3.5 million travelers in 2014 by air travel. So I'm not sure what happened there, but it could be perhaps just a change in tourism or some other aspect that I am not aware of.
Okay, just please bear in mind the speaking checklist, especially speaking on a visual, because speaking on a visual has 3 more points that you can see in the corner there. So I'll just leave this for a moment so you can look at those again. And then we can talk about what this test taker did well and what they could have done better. Curate made an interesting comment saying, I like the speaking speed, helps him to gather the ideas and then speak accordingly, which is a good strategy. And I agree, because the test taker is speaking at a natural speed. It's not like too fast or too slow, but also he's speaking at a measured pace, so he can kind of think about what he's saying. He's not trying to rush too much. So I think that's a great point. And Isabella, I think you made a great point too. You said before that we can kind of wonder about what caused the reduction in 2014 for air travel. And I just want to say that, yes, you can do that. You can sort of speculate and think about why this might happen. So even though you don't know for sure, it is okay to talk about your opinion about why things changed in the graph. Okay, so let's look at his transcript. Please let me know what you think he did well and what you think could have been improved. So Daniel is giving me a negative. Daniel says there is too much repetition. Perhaps and perhaps, because he does start many of the sentences with and. So I do agree that there is some repetition there. Any other points, anyone, that you would like to make? Anything that he did really well or perhaps not so well? Okay, Kim, thank you. Kim is saying that he has a good structure to his response. He does take all of the points in order, right? He has a kind of an order that he goes through. So that's a good point. And I'll also show you the highlighted areas are some of the precise, good use of vocabulary that he uses. Words like considers 3 factors, at its peak right now, in comparison. And so these are good transition words that kind of highlight the differences between what he's talking about. And so it's easy to understand what he's saying. And logically, he moves from one point to another point. Yeah, Fatima, he makes a good use of phrasal verbs. Okay, so I'll tell you what the raters said about this test taker. For content, they said it was really good that he summarizes the main points shown in the graph. He is on topic and well organized, and he has a good opening statement, but unfortunately, he doesn't have much of a closing remark. So at the end, it kind of seems like he's still talking, he's still making points. So he doesn't really have much of a closing statement. That could have been a little bit better. For accuracy, though, he uses some appropriate terms. So we put those in bold. You can see those words in bold. Those are words that are very precise and very exact. So these are very useful words to use. But like we also talked about, like Daniel said, I think, he uses the word and a little too much. He's starting too many sentences with the word and. However, if we're using the visuals, he describes and explains the information in the chart very accurately, mostly identifies general trends in the chart, so he kind of gives a good overview of the chart, and he also doesn't draw too many conclusions, which is something that could be a little bit better. But his delivery skill is very strong, and he covers a lot of information. So even though there were a couple of things that could be improved, mostly repetition, mostly not summarizing key conclusions from the chart, he still does very well overall. So hopefully you are ready for the final practice question, because this is the last one we will do today. And I'd really like to give you a chance to try this yourself, because I think the speaking on a visual question is a very interesting task. Are you ready to try this? I will give you 1 minute preparation time and then 2 minutes speaking time for you to record yourselves. So hopefully this will be a useful practice, because this question type is very different from the other two. And if you're ready, let's get started. Thank you for letting me know, Kirat. We're going to use one more question. So it's going to be a new question, new subject. And here we go. Oh, I'll just answer one question quickly. Matab is saying, do you know which day and what time will be the next week's class? The time will be the same time as today. It will be Monday again, and the same time, 2 p.m. Okay, so the lessons are always at the same time on Monday. And here we go. I'm going to give you 1 minute practice time first, starting now. Good luck, everyone. The recording time starts now. Okay, please stop. And just to let everyone know, I'm going to kind of quickly summarize some of our last slides. We're getting very close to the end now, and so I think we'll finish in a few more minutes. Please stay in the group if you can. If you need to leave, I understand, but we're almost finished. And please leave questions or comments in the box, and I'll try to answer them. Please let me know how that went. Like, was it better this time? Was something not so good? And how it went for you. I'm also just going to give you some key strategies that can help you on speaking on a visual. So just feel free to write your comments, and I'll read them in a moment. Oh, Harmel, it's good to know that you had a much better time this time. Okay, so I'll read these key strategies as we go. So key strategies for speaking on a visual. You should use your prep time to note key information from the diagram, such as the topic and the factors that are being displayed. So that could be the time, the cost, the distance, the amount of dollars, the year, whatever it is. Focus on what you have learned from the diagram. And then you can start with a summary of the most important aspects of the diagram, kind of an overview. So start with an overview, and then you can start making more specific points after the overview. Describe connections, explain any trends, and make comparisons. So for example, saying that over time, the trend for travelers into Canada was that all of them were increasing, but air travel was always the most popular. If possible, include your own thoughts about what the diagram tells you. So for the traveling one, for example, you could say, well, this slight dip in 2014 could be because of blah, 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 right? And give your own opinion about why you think that. Try to use specialized vocabulary if you know it. If you don't know it, of course, then that's okay not to use it, but it's good if you can use specific words relating to the data if you know those words. So for example, when something returns to a normal amount, you could say stabilize. If something drops down, you could say plummet if it goes down very fast, and just use those specific words. End with your conclusion or a prediction. So again, with the traveling one, we could say in 2017, I expect that travelers into Canada will still increase. And you can end with a prediction or a summary of the information that you looked at. So in general, I'd like to give you some test tips that can help with preparing for the test. In the test, it's good to speak with confidence and authority and use the appropriate levels of formality. So sometimes in a test question, you might be speaking more on a personal subject, and then you can be slightly less formal. But sometimes you might be speaking as though to a professor or to some other academic situation, and then you might need to be a bit more formal. Try to avoid upspeak, and this means like it sounds like you're answering a question, or sorry, asking a question, and your voice goes up. Like, I don't know if I'm asking a question. Try to avoid doing that. Try to sound sure of what you're saying. Okay, so always, it's very important to have a strong introduction, if you can think of one, because that gives you something you can start talking about as soon as the response time starts, and then you can build your response from there. So always think of a good intro statement. Use pauses and intonation to draw attention to key points. Like the test taker did, you can speak with a measured pace, and then that gives you some time to think about what you're going to say next. When you're restating key ideas, use different words and phrases. So don't repeat yourself too much. Try to avoid just saying and, or but, and try to use some variety. You can use different transitions and linking words, you know, therefore, because, however, moreover, and those different ways can combine the sentences in different ways, and it's more interesting. And try to include a wrap-up statement before your time is up, because it's better to sound like you're finished speaking than to sound like you're still speaking and then the time ran out. It's good to kind of have some kind of ending. And avoid lengthy silences. So try not to leave too many seconds where you're just silent, okay? Especially at the end or the beginning. Amatab, you're just asking, is it possible to listen to the lessons later? It is possible to listen to our lessons on YouTube. You can look for videos on the CAEL YouTube channel. And also we do record these and update them. But the actual lesson only happens on Mondays at 2 p.m. So if you can't join us for the lesson, please feel free to check out our YouTube channel. And Fatima is just asking about the files. I don't give you the slides, but we do send you a study pack later that has a bunch of documents inside. So please check your emails later today, and we will be sending you an email. Okay, so it's not the exact slides, but it's many of the same study tips and information, such as the speaking checklist. Okay, so some other general tips for speaking questions. Try to improve your level of academic English by reading academic tests whenever you can. Sorry, texts. And that means, of course, any journals that you can find, any books that you're studying with, you can use these things to help you. Try to develop your sentence structure by reading a lot of compound complex sentences, and work with digital books or books on tape to help you reduce your accent and improve your pronunciation. So, of course, this is also related to immersion in English. As much time as you can, it's good to spend thinking in English and using English textbooks and materials that can really help you to think. So, of course, also listen to news and podcasts. How do speakers express their opinions and summarize trends? And practice speaking for 1 minute, 1.5 minutes, or 2 minutes to feel how long those times are. So that's something that we tried to do today as well, to give you a chance to feel like how those questions really are. It's always good to try speaking and recording yourself, and try that again and again to give you practice for the real thing. Somebody's saying, what do you mean work with digital books or books on tape? It just means audiobooks, basically, audiobooks or podcasts. So basically, rather than just reading all the time, you can also listen to a native speaker reading something to you. Okay, so you can listen to the language in a natural way. All right, and one more thing I want to let you know about is some study materials and special offers that we're offering you today. So these are just some things you can see on the CAEL website if you go there. I highly recommend that you try the sample test because it's free and it gives you a great idea of what the actual test is like. We also have practice tests 1, 2, and 3, which are ways you can practice getting ready for the real thing. Also right now we're offering CAEL CE an overview, which is a digital book, for free. Okay, so that's free right now. And we also have a special bonus offer for you in a moment that I'll just quickly explain. And also we offer an academic vocabulary builder for $20 on the website. So the special offer I'd like to offer you is that we will send you a survey as well later with the email that we send. And if you complete the survey, we will give you practice test 1 for free. So usually that is $25. But if you do the survey, then you can do that for free. Also for free right now is the CAEL CE an overview, which is an ebook. You can download that for free on the bookstore. And if you want to try doing a pre-test, I know somebody before mentioned that they had done a pre-test before. If you sign up for a pre-test, you can get 50% off the price of the CAEL CE test. So if you're interested in doing that, go to the website link you can see there, or just go to our website and you can find that information pretty easily. And just feel free to sign up if you're interested. But you do need to check to see if it's available in your area. Okay, so I'll also try to answer any more questions you might have. Just quickly before we go as well, these are the web links for our homepage and to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And like I said before, you can go to the YouTube channel and watch videos there as well, where we do webinars. So if you miss some webinar or some lesson, you can also look on the YouTube channel. Okay, everyone, thanks again so much. I really do appreciate your efforts today. And if you're taking the test, then good luck on the test. Have a great day, and I'll speak to you again next week, hopefully. Thanks, everyone.